Hello and welcome to 7 Business Boosting Benefits of Cloud Labeling Solutions. Learn how standardizing your labeling in the cloud can benefit your business. My name is Bob Treblecock. I'm the Editorial Director of Supply Chain Management Review, and I'll be your moderator for this event, which is being brought to you by our friends at Loftware. Joining me today are Sam Ireland and Maureen Perroni. Sam is Loftware's Director of Marketing for EMEA and APAC, and Maureen is the Director of Content and Communications. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items. If you haven't done so already, I'd like to remind you that attendees are invited to download today's presentation. Just click on the resource icon on your screen. And finally, at the end, please take a moment to complete our survey. Now, we aren't going to have a formal Q&A during this webinar. However, you can feel free to submit any questions that you might have during the webinar. We'll forward them to Sam and Maureen after, and they can get back to you by email. Now to today's webcast. Nearly every organization we talk to these days is in the midst of a digital transformation of some aspect of their supply chain processes. They're all looking for new ways to drive efficiencies and increase productivity. In many, if not most cases, the cloud is a game changer for unlocking the value from digitalization. That includes labeling. It's a key component of gathering the information and data that drives the digital supply chain. When it comes to labeling, moving to the cloud can take your business processes to new heights. Yet, too many organizations are still leaving labeling to chance as they rely on disparate solutions to meet evolving and growing business demands. Unfortunately, this approach can result in labeling errors, inconsistencies, high maintenance costs, and non-compliance. In today's webinar, Sam and Maureen will discuss how to avoid these challenges and explore the 7 benefits of moving your labeling to the cloud. And with that, let's get started. Sam and Maureen, the microphone is all yours.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join us for this session that's going to focus on how you can unlock benefits with your labeling by moving to the cloud. So I'm Sam Ireland. I'm part of the marketing team here at Loftware, joined today by Maureen Perroni. As you can see on the screen there, Maureen's the Director of Content and Communications at Loftware, and she holds responsibility for the development of our corporate messaging and our content marketing. So clearly Maureen's been at the center of the development of our most recent resources around things like industry trends and the cloud messaging that we're going to be going through today. So if we just take a look at the agenda for probably the next 40 minutes or so, I would say. We'll take a look at some of the latest stats relating to cloud adoption and go through cloud at quite a high level in the next section before I then hand over to Maureen, who's going to tackle the 7 key benefits of cloud labeling. I'll then give a quick overview of Loftware towards the end of today's session, recognize that there's a few people here joining us today that perhaps haven't heard of Loftware before or want to find out more information. And then I'll close with a summary, some next steps, and perhaps some pointers for additional resources that you can go and sort of deepen your understanding of cloud labeling. So let's move on then and take a look at some of the key drivers that are leading to more and more businesses, regardless of their size and their scale, making the decision to move their core business applications to the cloud. So as I said, I thought it'd be useful just to show at a high level what's happening across organizations with regards to the cloud. We see that cloud spending is on the rise, and there's a stat on your screen now that shows that global cloud spending increased by 23.1% in 2021, according to Gartner. So many reasons why you could attach that increase to different factors that impact businesses, not least organizational strategies that are focused around that cloud-first approach. However, we have seen one significant factor impact the world of business over the last 2 years in particular, and that has a lasting impact on strategies within the IT teams or within IT within organizations globally, and it feels almost tangible. And that is, of course, the impact of COVID-19. So as a result of the pandemic, we've seen remote workforces really come to the fore. And the fact that, it's not always going to be easy now for team members to get into specific sites due to perhaps regional COVID measures, or that entire sites might need to halt production due to staff shortages or health measures, many organizations have looked at where they can limit that need to be on premise and where they can limit requirements for things such as maintenance of on-site hardware too. So the cloud has enabled them to have that much needed flexibility across their core business applications. And it's clear that now there's real momentum behind the cloud, as that stat suggests, especially now that from a security perspective, many of the concerns from days gone by, they don't stand up anymore. And we'll focus specifically around security towards the end of today's session. But this momentum now means that companies are looking to other business processes that can be managed in the cloud. And that's where we see leaders looking to labeling. Something that we focus quite considerably on in our recent 2022 top 5 trends in labeling and packaging, where we highlighted that over 42% of companies that we surveyed as part of that research, they'd already embraced the cloud-first strategy for their enterprise applications. So clearly quite a significant statistic, and one that shows that cloud really is set to dominate the conversation into the future. So let's now take a look in more detail at the specific benefits you can unlock by moving your labeling to the cloud. So the first point of the 7 that we'll cover today is the fact that with cloud labeling, you can get connected anywhere, anytime. And I sort of mentioned in the introduction there that COVID has really brought remote first approach to the fore, right? And that is the case. But in essence, what we've seen is actually it's accelerated the approach rather than completely reinvent it. Because organizations have seemingly forever been struggling to have flexibility, agility, and fluidity in their labeling operations. And COVID-19 has meant that for some organizations, the time to solve those challenges has been now. It's become a business imperative rather than something that was, I don't know, simply a nice to have. The fact is that by instilling the ability to be connected anywhere and anytime, you will have more flexibility than ever in your labeling processes. And the cloud allows you to accommodate shifts in production with ease, as well as unlocking some key benefits relating to the way your suppliers can label in accordance with your business rules, and all through their web browser, right? So anyway, let's now take a look at point number 1 in a lot more detail. So Maureen, do you want to step us through the real business benefits of point number 1, please?
Absolutely. Thanks, Sam, and welcome everybody. I'm really glad to be here today to talk to you a little bit more about the benefits of cloud-first labeling. So Sam gave a great overview. He talked a little bit about the impact of COVID that we've all felt firsthand, right, in our personal lives as well as in the business marketplace, for sure. So one thing that we've seen today is that in order for these companies to be able to keep pace and maintain business continuity, you really have to be able to enable a remote workforce. So I'm sure many of you are home, working from home right now, as am I. So certainly seeing that shift and how important it is, and you have to be able to enable that remote workforce to keep up with your business. This means you need access. You need to be connected anytime, anywhere, like Sam mentioned. So, to manage this shift, one of the most important things for companies to do is really to be able to take their enterprise applications, their systems and solutions, and be able to extend them across to all of their business stakeholders, whether they might reside in different plants or different facilities, different offices, and in different parts of the world, all across the world globally. So this is why we've seen, so many businesses embracing this more cloud-first strategy for all of their critical business systems, whether maybe it's your ERP or your CRM or customer relationship management, could be your inventory management solution, really any system and solution. And this is why it's really no different for your labeling. As you extend all of these applications, these systems and solutions, you need to be able to consider your labeling as well and make sure that you do that there. So I think that another thing that people have seen, that companies have seen, and I know we've seen, is over the past couple of years, people are beginning to recognize just how mission critical labeling is as a function. Labeling is critical for business continuity, for supply chain agility. And I know that everybody here on this call has seen firsthand how the supply chain can really impact our lives, both, again, personally as well as in the business space. So labeling, really important for your supply chain health. This is why you need to be able to have a flexible approach. And cloud-based labeling is going to offer that. They're going to give you more of a flexible, agile approach with your labeling. And this is going to be able to enable you that you can take access, enable it to all of your stakeholders across the globe. So you have shared systems managed by stakeholders no matter where they are. And that's really what the cloud does. It's really very much about access. So to be able to have a new and flexible way to conduct businesses, you need to be able to manage inventory, customer service, logistics in the cloud. And now folks are realizing they need to do that with their labeling as well. So one thing, and I think Sam talked about this briefly, for instance, when you're managing your labeling in the cloud, you really can easily shift to accommodate any new requirements. So we saw how important this was during the pandemic. Many manufacturers needed to shift production, right? We'll talk a little bit more about this when I get into the benefit of keeping up and running as well. But another benefit with the cloud services are going to offer you the ability, to be device independent. And that's really important right now. So what that means is that when you're device independent, you can access a solution or a system by a computer, any computer, as long as it has an internet connection. And that means you can virtually be anywhere around the world at any time to access those very critical business and labeling solutions. So ultimately, cloud computing, it enables complete mobility, allowing all of your users mobile access, whether they're using a tablet or a smartphone or any other relevant device. And this is why when we saw during the pandemic, there were so many companies still using on-prem siloed systems. They were hit really hard because in these cases, they really didn't have that same kind of agility that we talk about with cloud labeling. So they couldn't shift their labeling to accommodate their production. They weren't able to enable remote workers to accommodate this new norm. So when there are shutdowns or health concerns, these same companies were faced with significant delays or downtime. And we all know here today that there are huge financial implications when that happens. So this is why now companies, when they need to think about replacing more out-of-date legacy solutions, they're looking to refresh these old hardware systems with cloud-connected printers. They're looking to embrace cloud-based solutions so that they can scale out implementations more effectively, so that they can easily set up multiple servers and multiple users in multiple locations. So cloud deployment ultimately is going to enable you to quickly access information, applications, services from anywhere at any time. And this is really why cloud is becoming the mainstay when it comes to software delivery. Okay, so that's it on staying connected, Sam.
That's great, Maureen. Thank you. So moving on then to the second benefit, and this is all about how with labeling in the cloud, you can design and change labels on the go. So never has there been more pressure on us to work quicker, to do more, to be always on. Business demands, customer demands, and market drivers mean that there's a greater focus than ever being placed on the efficiency of labeling. Now, organizations we speak to tell us how it takes them weeks to get a label changed and how they have to wait days, maybe even weeks, for that approval process to complete. Now, this lack of efficiency really doesn't need to be the case anymore, right? With cloud labeling, you can take a modern, a digital, a collaborative, and an integrated approach to your labeling. You can cut out approval times, you can speed up label changes, and you can rely on data integrations to draw out label data from your sources of truth. There really is a host of benefits attached to this specific point. So, Maureen, do you want to now go into some of the specifics on this one for us?
Yeah, absolutely, Sam. A lot of good points you made right there. But when we talk about cloud deployment, one of the key, or a couple of the key advantages really are speed and agility. And this is exactly what you need to be able to manage your labeling. So I think to make an important point, first off, we need to talk about the fact that labeling today has become so very complex. I'm sure everybody on this call here today understands that. So as we look at labeling and the evolution of it, there's constant change. There's increasing customer requirements, and we all know there's a ton of evolving regulations. So really complex, a lot of variability. Whether you're moving into new markets or regions, maybe you might be trying to meet new corporate brand standards, or even just trying to keep up with product-related changes like we're seeing from so many of our customers. But either way, when you're dealing with all this variability, what you really need is to be able to streamline and speed up those changes so that you can make your business more efficient. Now, again, obviously labeling, this is an area with a ton of variable data, constant updates and added information, whether it's customer-centric or regulatory. But the important note here is that when you're doing this, when you're dealing with all this variability, it really needs to be met with consistency and accuracy. That is critical when it comes to labeling. And I think it's because, one of the things that we've seen from so many customers is, when you create risk for error, you have some serious problems. There are a lot of life science companies and food and beverage companies where you can even be dealing with health and safety concerns, for instance. So I think the point is that you create risk for error if you're not using or utilizing an agile, more dynamic solution that can actually address this kind of variability that we're talking about. If you don't have the right data on the right labeling, you definitely have a problem. So this is why, when we talk about labeling, why wouldn't you look to improve and fully automate your labeling processes? Well, this is where the cloud comes in. So when you standardize on a more cloud-based solution, you're going to realize flexibility, you're going to realize accuracy and consistency, and that kind of approach is going to help you avoid the mislabeling and easily support any requirements you might have, no matter what they are. So I think another important point when we talk about cloud-based is, cloud-based centralized approach to labeling is going to let you leverage data from your sources of truth, your ERP or any other relevant system. And then, of course, you can configure rules that dynamically change label content based on that data. So I think, when you're embracing the cloud, it's really going to help enable or aid you in streamlining all of your label formatting and printing, because you can access these approved templates from anywhere and make any updates to speed up that label change and approval process that we were talking about. So I know Sam threw out a stat earlier from our trend survey where we get a lot of great data and hear firsthand from customers. So I'm gonna toss one out right now too. Probably no surprise to you that, based on the stuff that we're telling you, that 70% of our respondents from the trend survey actually believe that their labeling is going to be cloud-based deployment. That's going to be their preferred deployment in about 3 years' time. So they're going to look to enable labeling applications in the cloud in 3 years' time. That's going to be the preferred deployment. That's certainly where we see everybody moving. So I think it's really super clear that people are beginning to understand the benefits that the cloud offers. You're going to empower your business users with the flexibility to create and update labels with ease, with browser-based WYSIWYG design capabilities. And this, of course, is going to add in employee productivity. I think all these changes and updates now are going to be far more swift. You're going to see them be able to be made in hours rather than in traditional circumstances, it'd be days or weeks, sometimes months. And this is actually a huge advantage for IT, and we'll talk about that next. I think at the end of the day, the cloud deployment is really going to offer new levels of collaboration, control, and consistency over your label design. So ultimately, as cloud deployment method becomes the simplest way for companies to access labeling. They can manage and print labeling across their entire business and supply chain operation, and they can do it with speed and, again, with accuracy and consistency, which really is key when it comes to label updates. So that's all I have on that point, Sam. So back over to you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So yeah, as Maureen mentioned, the sort of third point here is related to IT, all about giving your IT team a break, or perhaps more specifically, giving your IT team a break from focusing on labeling seemingly forever, right? So there's always demands and pressures on IT functions, and indeed, we probably see many business processes intersect that team, that function at some point. But the point here is that with labeling, it is often the case, but it doesn't need to be the case now. Label change requests get caught up in a queue while other high priority work is carried out elsewhere and needs to have the attention of that IT team. They need to focus on some business critical projects, or perhaps there's an outage somewhere that they need to focus on. All in all, labeling just adds into the mix of other things that need to be prioritized by the IT function. So by having labeling in the cloud, you can empower the business users to do more when it comes to labeling. You can extend what we would say is flexibility within a framework, right, in accordance with your business rules. And you can make efficiency savings and speed to market savings because you're allowing the users within your business to do more when it comes to making label changes, all in accordance with your business rules. It really is a key point, and one that we hear often sort of coming to the fore or sort of bubbling up within customer organizations that we speak to. So, Maureen, could you now just step us through point number 3 here in a little bit more detail and just outline how having labeling in the cloud is supporting businesses within this area, please?
Right. Sure, Sam. So this is obviously an interesting benefit, and I'm sure there are a lot of potentially IT folks on the call today, and I'm sure this is a pain point for you all. So, we have increasing demands on our IT folks, IT staffs today. We're all aware of it. I think this is especially important and especially relevant in today's remote working environment. And we talked about that earlier. But in this new digital era, more and more demand being placed on IT. So our IT people are faced with countless day-to-day requests. They're dealing with system breakdowns, and they're managing remote access, like we talked about. Not to mention that, establishing all of our company-wide systems and solutions that need to get maintained and updated, and even in some situations replaced regularly. Now, you add to that countless hours of implementation and deployment for these solutions. So heavy demands. I'm going to toss out another trend stat that I think is super relevant here. And I think this shows that the pain that we're seeing related to IT. So from our trend survey, again, we had 60% of those surveyed, and it actually was slightly over 60% of those surveyed viewed ease of deployment as a top benefit for being able to manage labeling apps in the cloud. So, getting that off the plates of our IT folks would be huge, huge for them, huge for the business at hand. And then when we're talking about other responsibility, they're dealing with security, they're dealing with availability, performance monitoring, and disaster recovery. All of those to consider as well. So a lot on their plates. Now, unlike some other applications or deployments, cloud-based labeling doesn't require a large IT team. It's not going to require countless hours or a limitless budget because really there's no IT infrastructure to purchase or maintain. Now, with the cloud, also, you're going to have simplified maintenance, and upgrades are going to really become seamless because you're dealing with on-demand provisioning of hardware and software. And then there's the aspect of business insights. So teams can easily gain valuable access to these business insights. Now, this could include the ability for, say, your partners to monitor customer supplies and usage so that they can help grow their business. But really, having this kind of real-time insight is going to ultimately help you improve efficiencies. It's going to make your labeling activities much easier to track and manage. And you can all do this easily from a cloud-based platform. So, with the cloud, you're also going to get automatic software updates. And then once you're up and running, it's going to allow, and we talked in the label updates earlier, but it's also going to allow you to have business users who can design and manage and print collaboratively, just like we already talked about. And the unique piece, or the relevant piece to IT here, is that every time an update needs to be made, people don't have to raise their hands and call in IT. So certainly a great opportunity to free up their time. So, when you implement this kind of a cloud-based labeling platform, which especially is integrated with your sources of truth, like your ERP or whatever that system might be that we talked about, you leverage your business logic, and then your business users can easily do all of the changes and updates, no requirements from IT. So, managing and maintaining IT systems really becomes incredibly more easy when you're doing cloud-based solutions. So this is ultimately, at the end of the day, your IT teams have more time and there's more resources so that they can focus on other requirements around the business. Over to you, Sam.
No, thank you. That's great. And I think now, as we start to move on to the fourth point, what we're going to look at in this point is how with cloud labeling, you can start to be a bit more active in the financial impact of your labeling processes. And we know that managing costs, right, is of crucial importance. We see margins being squeezed. Competition is fiercer than ever, some might say. And certainly operational costs across your business are likely skyrocketing now as the price of raw materials rises. But that's why cloud labeling can sort of bring real benefits to your business. Your teams can operate more efficiently. They can focus on activity that drives the most value. And then also you can instill that flexibility into your operations with an as-a-service model that allows you to better account for labeling solutions by, in effect, sort of paying for what you use and when you use it. So really key point, and I think it really stands out around the work that we've done around cloud labeling, that managing costs more effectively is sort of a key benefit for businesses by moving labeling to the cloud. But obviously, I do just want to hand this over to Maureen, who's got some interesting insight as to exactly why that might be the case. So Maureen, I'm just going to throw that back over to you now.
Sure. As Sam mentioned, this is another real key benefit to cloud-based applications. Certainly a definite financial impact from labeling in the cloud or really managing any of your applications in the cloud. Huge opportunity for cost savings, but then, more specifically, even for managing your costs across the company. So managing costs has become an increasing concern for business today. And I think Sam mentioned that. So the beauty of the cloud is there really is a big opportunity here for some cost savings and cost management when it comes to cloud deployment. First and foremost, the cloud is going to offer you some financial predictability. So what does that mean? So utilizing a cloud-based platform is going to eliminate the need for you to make any extensive upfront investments. It's going to reduce the need for internal IT infrastructure, and it's going to take away from the demand on your IT teams. And again, we talked about that a little bit, but reducing those incredibly extensive IT man hours, that's going to present a really big business value for you. So, it's going to result in more cost savings, not to mention reducing hassle and, again, resources to allocate elsewhere. Again, we talked about giving your IT team a break. So definite value that you can see and ROI that you can see over there. Additionally, when you're investing in cloud technology or on as a service basis or on a SaaS, a software as a service basis, you're going to take traditional IT operations and you're going to take it from an operational expense, like an OpEx, versus a capital expense or a CapEx. So in this case, the latter is going to require upfront investments, like I mentioned, and these are generally going to be depreciated over time. So usually over the life of the resource or the asset. Now, adversely, with older on-prem systems that might be tied to this kind of a CapEx outlay, that's going to have some implications for your business. So when you're dealing with cloud applications, you don't have those same implications because you're shifted to an operational expense. So what does this mean for you and your business? Well, ultimately, it means you can preserve more capital for your critical business needs. For example, whether you need new facilities that get opened, you have added equipment you need, or even just more production capacity. So now you have that open cash flow for it. So obviously, cloud-based labeling approach, it's really just at the end of the day, it's going to allow you or provide you with improved cash flow for your business. And who doesn't want that? So then there's some other more kind of less obvious advantages of cloud labeling. And one might be a smaller environmental footprint, right? So no big servers on site that you need to maintain. And then, of course, there's a sustainability advantage to that. And, we're talking a lot about sustainability today and the importance of it. And then there's also a dramatic reduction in errors that you'll see with cloud-based labeling. And what does all this mean? Well, this is going to mean less waste and fewer scrap supplies, and both of which can contribute to a company's carbon footprint and overall expenses. So you're getting rid of all those kind of inventory expenses and waste and everything like that. So that's going to hit your bottom line. Basically, cloud labeling means less infrastructure also and less electricity even. So, along with the integration of cloud-connected printers and other tools, you're going to have a more integrated infrastructure for your labeling. So I think, as Sam mentioned earlier, this means you can use the cloud to ultimately pay for what you use only when you use it. And then another really important point here. So I think that on-premise enterprise software systems, they were really more prohibitive to, the smaller or the mid-sized organization. But the cloud, what that does is it's going to remove all of these barriers for world-class systems. So these smaller or mid-sized companies, they have access to the same kinds of, enterprise-wide software systems that larger companies might have, making things far more affordable for them. So even companies that might be resource constrained, they can still get enterprise software, enterprise labeling solutions that work to create more efficiencies and optimizations for them. So again, not requiring a large IT team or a limitless budget. So, really cloud-based labeling is going to provide you with a lower cost of total ownership and give you great opportunity to increase your ROI. And as we discussed, cloud adoption really is on the rise now. And I'm going to finish this slide off here with an interesting stat from Gartner that I picked up recently. Gartner had reported that by 2024, not too far off really, they expect that 45%, now that's a pretty significant number, I think. So 45% of all IT spending on system infrastructure, on infrastructure software, application software, and business process outsourcing, it's all going to shift from our more traditional on-prem solutions to a cloud-based solution. So it's coming. Adoption is coming. Back to you, Sam.
Thank you. Thank you. So point number 5 then of the 7 that we're going to talk to you about today is all about continuous uptime, right? It's clearly a crucial factor in ensuring your operational success. And labeling in the cloud means that you can support your business in shifting production and responding to other internal and external factors as they pop up. So where once these sort of what we would call cumbersome, manual, and on-premise processes and solutions would hold you back, with a cloud-based approach, it can be a key enabler and can place labeling as a key strategic enabler to support improved uptime and ultimately improve the performance of your business. Again, Maureen, I know this is another one that a lot of research has happened from our side on, but I'm going to pass back to you again just to step through some of the key points around why it is so important to stay up and running around the clock and just exactly how cloud labeling enables it.
Right. Yeah, so, we've been talking quite a bit about COVID today for obvious reasons. And I think Sam mentioned earlier on in the presentation that, COVID has accelerated our move in certain situations to remote workforce and other things. But, I really do think that we were moving in that direction anyway. But I do think with this, with staying up and running around the clock, we did see how critically important that is during COVID specifically. I'm sure you all saw, issues with business shutdowns, with limited workforce. We all saw this happening. But, what this meant to many manufacturers was, they needed to shift their production so that they could keep business up and running around the clock. It did put a lot of business at risk. And, they were in the process of trying to get parts and products they needed, especially when it came to critical pharmaceuticals and vaccines, or maybe even medical device and PPE supplies, even food and beverage and necessary consumer products that we needed in our everyday lives. So business has to keep up and running so those things can get produced and get where they need to, when they need to. I think that the supply chain issue, that's huge with this benefit. And I think we saw, when the supply chain goes down, when there's disruption, what can happen? And when we have manufacturing production, there's also issues. So what is the best way really to keep your operations and your supply chain running in kind of a fast and frictionless manner? Well, we're seeing that the cloud is really a great enabler for that. So we understand now, after all of these disruptions, that, continuous uptime and, being able to maintain business continuity, this is important, and if it's not met, if these demands are not met, there's really substantial implications that, can happen. So, your business could be faced with delays or fines. You could end up with customer dissatisfaction, and it can even impact your brand reputation. But if you're getting your production back on track, you also need to have your labeling up and running, because if you can't get your labeling going, you're still going to have a problem. So this is because labeling today has really become critically important, maybe overlooked in the past, but now I think people are understanding the relevance. So labeling has all the information and all the identifiers we need. It's basically acting as a passport through your business and your supply chain. So to manage all of this, a cloud-based labeling operation is going to offer continuous uptime. It's going to offer availability so that when you're faced with these potential circumstances, hopefully we're not, but there are these critical circumstances like an outage or workforce stoppage or pandemic or any other reason. But in this case, when you're based on the cloud, you can quickly shift your labeling to meet your production demands, and you can do it across multiple sites to reduce any potential downtime. So another important point when we talk about keeping up and staying up and running in a continuous manner is really around enabling your suppliers. So I think what happened is during COVID, there were really quite a few suppliers that weren't able to meet demand. And this, of course, had a really significant impact on especially manufacturers using a JIT or just-in-time model for their inventory. And it left them looking for new suppliers where they could secure parts and products. But I think, maybe even some of you on the call today saw that this really wasn't an easy feat. So, but then when you were able to secure potentially new suppliers or partners, you still need to be able to offer them access to your labeling and label data. So, otherwise, if you can't do that, you are still going to be faced with more delays and potentially even mistakes or errors, which can be, really detrimental to your business, and also can result in costly, time-consuming relabeling of inbound goods, which no one wants to deal with. However, back to the cloud-based platform, if you're enabling or embracing a cloud-based platform, it's really easy to extend your labeling to all of these partners and suppliers, and you do it in a controlled manner, right? So they have controlled access to label data and templates that you want them to have. And this is going to help you avoid these relabeling issues, these mistakes, these errors. So the cloud-based platform is also going to give you visibility. So you get visibility into labeling activities across your entire supply chain. And this is going to help you avoid bottlenecks. So helping you to maintain that connectivity that we're talking about, and also create process improvement with when you have the visibility that you need. So I guess when it comes to labeling, really the best way to make sure that you keep up and running in a continuous manner with availability scalability for all of your stakeholders is through the reliable cloud-based platform. And that means with a cloud, you can get up and running quickly as well. So the speed is important here too, offering continuous movement of parts and products, both upstream and downstream, really without any delay. Okay, Sam, so back to you again.
Thank you. Thanks for that. So conscious of time, I think we'll move on to point number 6. And we've touched upon a few elements of this already, but it's all about managing growth across your business. So when it comes to labeling, it's obviously crucially important, really, that you've got an element of standardization that allows you to scale at the pace you need to. And with a digitized cloud-based labeling solution, you can get rid of those manual processes and standardize your labeling in the cloud to make it more efficient to add new sites or new regions with all of the requirements that we know that brings. So it's not just central functions that benefit from this approach, though, because your regional sites then get the flexibility they need for their labeling. And they also benefit from having it served to them in an easy to use solution that ultimately makes their life easier. It helps them reduce or eradicate errors and helps them to remain compliant. So as well as all that, it means you can also finally get rid of all of the legacy processes and solutions that you have in place, and then really take a modern view of how labeling should be tackled so that it supports growth rather than ultimately limits it. So now, hopefully, Maureen, you've had a chance to catch your breath. I'm just going to pass back to you again, just to step us through some of the key elements of how cloud labeling helps organizations to sort of manage growth, but also scale as well.
Right. Thanks, Sam. And thanks for that great intro. Very informative. So I'll pick up from there and just say that one of the things when we talk about managing the growth of your business, and some of these notions we're talking about, they really wrap from one to the next. But to manage growth, you also need to be able to extend your business applications. And that means extend your labeling. So including your labeling. You need to be able to extend that to new facilities or new offices. And, when you can't, you're going to be dealing with a lack of consistency or potential confusion that you could face across the business. So as Sam talked about, really the very best way to manage that growth is through a standardized labeling solution that you can actually control centrally and one that can flex with your business as you need it to. So in today's business environment, and again, Sam talked about this a little bit, but these manual processes, they're really going to represent barriers to growth and scale, and you don't want that. So, whether you're adding more locations or increasing print volumes, you might be manufacturing new products, or we're always all trying to comply with regulations. But either way, you really need to be able to give all of the stakeholders access to your solution, including labeled data and labeled templates, so that they can meet corporate labeling standards. That is going to offer you the ability to have consistency and accuracy as you grow your business, as you grow globally or in whatever capacity. So without the standardized cloud solution in place, you still could run into more business and supply chain disruptions like we talked about earlier. I think one of the things that's a concern is that even still with the pressures of the pandemic and with the implications of global supply chains and the issues that we've seen with disruptions there, many people are still leaving their mission critical labeling up to chance and using these more homegrown disparate software solutions that really can't meet all of their needs today. And what happens is with these kind of patchwork systems, they do confound and create confusion and delay, and most importantly, they create a lot of risk. But again, once you're digitized on a cloud-based solution, these manual processes are simply going to give way to a more seamless exchange of data and allow companies to maintain existing systems, user interactions, improve efficiencies, and importantly, scale their labeling across their entire business ecosystem. So, one of the other points is when you're using a cloud-based labeling system, it's going to increase elasticity of your overall labeling. So what does that mean? So you're giving your users more flexibility with re-provisioning or the adding or the expanding your technological infrastructure. And then maximizing regional flexibility, is also key when you're trying to enable your business to adjust and adjust rapidly, whether that's up or down to meet the challenges of global expansion or even redeploying resources. And then one really important point here, most importantly with a cloud-based solution, you can onboard new sites quickly. So, you can provide simplified, standardized training via a user-friendly platform, and you can get these new sites up and going in a really swift manner. Now we already talked a little bit about the importance of extending labeling to partners and suppliers. Well, it's also important here. So when we talk about growing our business, we also need to enable those suppliers. So supplier labeling is also important here because when you scale your business and you increase your volumes, you likely need more suppliers and partners to aid you in meeting all those demands. So we know we talked about this earlier. Cloud-based platform is going to really, enable that really quickly and easily. So, when you're growing your business, important point here is just giving access to all of these stakeholders, whether they're internal or external, and the cloud can do that. They can easily add new users with controlled access, internally or externally. So deploying labeling through the cloud is offering you more of a sustained opportunity for growth. It's going to enable all of your locations across the globe to meet all of their different unique labeling needs, while they're also ensuring more of a common set of labels, centralized applications, and data sources, and all the way across the supply chain. So, basically, you're going to get what you need from a cloud-based solution. You're going to be able to access it anywhere. And then ultimately, migrating to the cloud has proven to be one of the most effective strategies for organizations to build that operational resiliency, also to enhance competitive advantage, and then to meet speed and scale of today's fast-growing business environment. Okay, Sam,
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. So we've reached the seventh point. So we mentioned the topic of security right at the top of the presentation, right? And obviously it's a key factor when, you're thinking about such mission critical processes. And to be honest, it's of crucial importance, regardless of whether the data is hosted on your servers or not, right? But by having labeling in the cloud, you can benefit from leveraging the power and the resources of some of the biggest organizations in the world. And these guys have to be at the top of their game when it comes to security. So by adopting cloud solutions that are built on AWS or Microsoft Azure, for example, you can take peace of mind that by partnering with the best, you can unlock the next level of security and ensure that your cloud environment is protected by world-leading technology. So, Maureen, for the final point, then, just talk us through this seventh benefit in a little bit more detail, if you can.
Yeah, and I'm really sure this is one that is on the top of minds of all the folks who joined today, because we know that, workload security is one of the top challenges faced by enterprises today. And when it comes to the cloud, I think security and keeping your data safe is really probably one of the most important points here. And this is why I think so many people have reservations about switching to the cloud. It might be due to security concerns. They understand the urgency in keeping their data safe online, whether it's in hosted servers, that they have, or through provider. But the thing here is, the really important point is, when you use a reliable cloud service provider, you really can put your mind at ease that they can keep your data safe with highly secure cloud services. So, this is why I think when it comes to implementing a cloud-first approach for really any of your applications, but we're talking about labeling here today, you really need to engage a trusted partner that has a dedicated team of certified security professionals. These are the folks that understand best practices. They understand the best practices across policies, processes, and controls, and what's involved in securing that data and your overall cloud infrastructure. So what you want is a provider that, can implement security measures to protect your data in the cloud. You want commitment and surety that deployment was built with security and stability in mind. And ultimately, you really just want the confidence that your entrusted data is protected so that you can sleep at night. So fortunately, with the cloud, security is often better than actually with traditional systems. Now, in part, this is really because these service providers, they're devoting all kinds of resources to solving security issues, whereas I think many customers, maybe they can't afford to tackle these issues, or maybe they just lack the technical skills or the time to address them. I'm going to throw out another quick Gartner stat here that speaks to what we're talking about. Gartner said that through 2022, at least 95% of cloud security failures will be attributable, to user error, and suggests that rather than ask, is cloud computing secure, businesses should be asking, am I using cloud computing securely? So there's really there are no issues here. Cloud is secure, and there's great stakes that these providers take to make sure. So why do we say that cloud security is so robust, and what makes cloud storage so safe? Well, first, the servers are usually located in warehouses that most workers don't even have access to. Secondarily, files are stored in cloud servers that are encrypted, and this means they're scrambled, and this is going to make it much harder for cyber criminals to access. Also, public cloud providers invest heavily in security innovation, like we talked about. Patching and security management are consistent, and cloud operators actually have to maintain continuous compliance assurance with regulatory mandates and frameworks and laws of all the countries that they operate in. And then you add to that, they're resilient to threats, and public cloud providers attract and retain the very best in cyber talent. Now, Sam mentioned them earlier, but of course, the ideal cloud-based solution partner, or the ideal cloud-based solution will be built on AWS or Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure. And these are architected really to be the most flexible and secure cloud computing environments available today. So, cloud companies, they're relying far more on robust security measures to protect all of your sensitive data. So remember, at the end of the day, the partner behind the tech is just as important, if not more critical than the tech itself. So you want to partner with a provider that puts security and stability really front and center, one that ensures entrusted data is protected and can verify security measures to protect your data in the cloud consistently. So that was all I had to mention for our seventh benefit. So I'm going to just give you a really quick overview. I'm going to bounce on to the next slide here and just tell you quickly that, we talked a lot about the benefits of cloud and the benefits of cloud labeling specifically today. I think it's really clear to say that cloud adoption is on the rise for many businesses, and your labeling really shouldn't be any different. It shouldn't be left behind. There's quick deployment times, low upfront costs, easy access, and availability to scale, So preparing your business for future success is going to start with switching from an on-prem hardware to cloud for your computing needs. And this is going to give you access to more applications, improve data accessibility, and help your team collaborate more effectively, as well as provide easier content management. And this is why we're seeing companies exploit and gain benefit from cloud. And these that do, they're really positioned to have an advantage over companies and set themselves apart for the future. So I'm going to wrap up with that. And now I'm going to kick it over to Sam for just a quick recap on those benefits we talked about.
Yeah, thanks, Maureen. Recognise that the seven probably came at you quite thick and fast in the audience there. So just wanted to flash this up towards the end and just give it a refresh, really, of the seven benefits that we've spoken about today. So firstly, we had the ability to get connected anywhere, anytime. We then moved on to talk about how, with labeling in the cloud, you can instill the ability to design and change labels on the fly. The third point was all about gaining efficiencies within the IT function and not having an IT team that was just absorbed by too many labeling change requests, or actually labeling activity that perhaps they didn't need to be involved with, and they could extend some of that access back to the business and allow them the framework in which to operate within the business unit. The fourth benefit was around saving money and managing costs. And we also talked through in the fifth point around continuous uptime and how cloud labeling allows you to stay up and running around the clock. The sixth point we raised was really around scalability and managing growth across your business. And then we just heard from Maureen now that IT and the security focus is absolutely critical within your labeling operations. And actually, cloud labeling enables you to take that to the next level and really take confidence in your approach. So that was it. We will just now just move on quite quickly to a Loftware really snapshot overview of our business, because we do just want to talk about how really Loftware can support you and is supporting organizations around the world with overcoming some of the challenges that we've discussed today, right? So Loftware is the global market leader in enterprise labeling and artwork management solutions, offering the industry's most comprehensive digital platform, which includes on-premise as well as cloud-based solutions that we've heard a lot about today. And importantly here, for organizations of all sizes. Okay, so we support them with managing and printing complex labeling, artwork, and packaging. We see companies partner with us to help them to meet regulatory mandates, to improve their time to market, to support their new product development, as well as helping them to mitigate risk, amongst probably a raft of other benefits that we see our customers realize. Our global team and our deep expertise ensures that we're able to support customers in overcoming all of their labeling and artwork management challenges. And importantly here, no matter how unique or how industry specific they may be. So final point on this slide from me is I do just want to point out, Loftware, we referenced their 30 years of leadership in this space. And we're an organization that continues to grow and really expand our offering and our services to help customers really unlock the potential of transforming their labeling and artwork management. And with that growth in mind, I just wanted to highlight some exciting news that we announced earlier on this year, which was the acquisition of Prism ID. Now, many of you will know Prism ID, but just in case we had a few people perhaps joining us today that haven't heard of Prism's expertise, Prism ID is a leading provider of regulated content and label management solutions with a focus, specifically, I would say, focusing on clinical trials, medical device, and pharmaceutical labeling. So we're hugely excited by this acquisition. We believe it's going to bring great benefits to Loftware customers, Prism ID customers, as well as actually the broader industry. Now, main point here is just that there's a host of information available on loftware.com. Go onto the website, you can see an on-demand webinar with our respective CEOs. We've got news stories, we've got a press release, we've got lots of material for you to go and take a look at. And I'd encourage you to do so, just to spend some time and understand exactly what this acquisition could mean for you and the potential opportunities that it could provide your business. Okay, so final slide from us today. Really just want to say, I hope you found it useful. I appreciate we've gone through this at pace. There's lots of material to absorb, and you can find out more about our cloud benefits, as well as everything else that we have to offer, our value, and some existing case studies and reports and white papers at loftware.com, and particularly loftware.com/resources is the place to go and have a look at all of the information that's available to you. Importantly, perhaps to try and bring internal stakeholders onto the same page as you with regards to the next move that you need to take with your labeling. So obviously no time for questions today, but we do commit, we've seen some coming through, and we do commit to get back to you with a response to these questions as soon as possible after the event today. But I think all that's left for me to say really is just a thank you for your time. Really appreciate you joining us. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sam, and thank you, Maureen, and a special thank you to all of you for attending. That is all the time we have for today. And again, I want to thank Sam Ireland and Maureen Perroni for today's presentation, and want to encourage everyone to download the presentation in the resource box. You're also going to find a special report that will offer a little bit more detail on the webinar that you just heard. Again, just click on the resource icon. And remember, while we didn't have a Q&A, you can feel free to submit any questions, and we'll forward them to Sam and Maureen, and they can get back to you by email. Finally, a special thanks to our sponsor, Loftware, who made this possible. And be sure to fill out that survey and resources. It'll really help us and also all of our presenters. For Supply Chain Management Review and Logistics Management, I'm Bob Treblecock.